News Talk 640 WFNC. KIRK deVIERE. Can you hear the music in there?
I can.
You can. Do you know who that is?
No.
This is the horn group, Chicago.
And see, don't ever ask me musical groups.
but that's
I'm
okay.
terrible. I would
That's it.
lose
Greg,
every
here.
time.
We got a rookie in here, Greg.
Yep.
But you know what? I'm not going to waste any time with the trivial things that we do here because we have important business we need to take care of, and there's a lot of great things. Let's start off with the drone company and how good that is for both the city of Fayetteville and the county of Cumberland.
Yeah, and I know you've talked about it, so we won't get into the millions of dollars in jobs created and those types of things. I think it's great that we're breathing life. We're putting life back in that Black & Decker plant, which is great. First, just hats off to Robert Van Giens and his team. After they came for our incentives, I looked at him and said, just go win that thing. And Robert and his team just have this tenacity of how they position our community, how they talk about our community, and how they really worked hard and deep in, these defense sectors and technology sectors, healthcare sectors. This is a success from that. And it's going to be beneficial to our community. But more importantly, it's validation. It's validation that, we are in that defense sector, not just to provide services to soldiers, but in families, but goods and services, and that we can manufacture things. And that's that signal a couple weeks ago at the City View Newsmakers event. I talked about industry signals that we want to send out, especially in that defense sector. And this is one of those signals. This is that validation that we send when you compete and win against, Oklahoma, Nevada, and they pick Cumberland County and Fayetteville to come to. There's a reason why they do that, and that's a validation, and that ripples across the industry, and that's exactly what we're looking for. And that takes time to build, and now we're going to begin to feel those effects of that signal.
Well, and Sharon Moyer was here from City View, and she outlined some of the things that people were saying about the county on the cards that they gave to everyone. It wasn't one of these cards that you checked off, yes, I think this. You had to write things down. And the message that she said resonated with everyone, that Cumberland County's economy isn't going down.
That's right.
It just seems like we're stagnant, or we just got to move forward. And that was the gist of what the community was thinking about ourselves. The other point I think that needs to be reiterated is what you just said, is the fact that we got to believe in ourselves.
That's right.
And I think Judy Dawkins was the one that made some comment near the end of this, that we do. We can't sell this place to someone else if we don't believe in it ourselves. And I think that's the message that's coming from both the city and the county.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing us right at that momentum. This begins to continue that momentum that we've been seeing in these sectors. But it took kind of that resetting the foundation a little bit. So, investing, making sure that we're looking at things like public safety and the investments that municipalities like the city of Fayetteville and others are doing in public safety, or whether it's infrastructure, ensuring that we've got our school systems, ensuring we got, quality school systems and making those investments, getting that foundation in place so that as Robert is working that economic development angle, that, those signals in people from the outside see a community that's ready. So it's not just the industry that sees it, but the quality of life aspect. When they begin to look at a community, they see quality of life, they see, a safe community, they see strong schools, they see all those things. And so I think you've seen a reset over the last several years as we begin to posture ourselves not to be so retail driven, but to be focused on advanced manufacturing in the technology space, the healthcare space, with a medical school. Again, these are all those signals. So one of 150 medical schools in the nation. That's a signal. We're signaling out to the industries that are out there, that if you're looking to do, business and healthcare, this is a place you want to be. If you're looking to do defense sector work, we've got the decision makers sitting right down there at Fort Bragg. Those are the warfighters. If you're providing goods and services to the Department of Defense, this is the place you want to be. And that groundwork was laid. Look at this drone manufacturing. Look at kind of how we got here. A year and a half ago, I think, we had a drone competition here. We had all these industry leaders come in. We had all these manufacturers come in, began to set the groundwork for, hey, who is Cumberland County? Hey, what are they doing over there? Hey, look at their Look at their workforce. Look at this veteran population workforce. Look at this trained workforce that we're seeing with FTCC and Fayetteville State and Methodist University. Like, hey, there's something going on there. And again, this is that validation across these industry sectors that allow us to recruit more.
You know, you talk about the drone competition that was here. We had the individuals putting that on,
Yep.
and we promoted the heck out of it, and they had a great turnout. So you have people, and I think we had some issues because something was going on with Fort Bragg at the time. It was a war or whatever it was, and so some of the military teams couldn't come.
It was.
And we had I think teams from Taiwan and around the world
That's right.
who were coming here. And so what you get is the residual impact of people coming to this community to do one thing, and they say, like you just said, wait a minute, where is this place? What else
That's
do
right.
they have going on? So that residual impact is what we're talking about. And I think that's segues very nicely into the aquatic center and what the vision is on having that as a place for competition. You tell us what that is, because you just did the feasibility, and I do want to point out that Coral Aponte from the Fayetteville Observer has a real nice article in there. July 24th is when it was published, so you can get great details about the nuts and bolts, about the dollars and cents involved with the feasibility study. But that's the first part of this.
Yeah, we really got to do that feasibility study to make sure we're going to get this right, especially if you're looking at a regional side. You know, this is going to deal with sports tourism and potentially how it interacts locally, you know, with our local teams and just also with our citizens. You know, this feasibility study is going to look at, you know, what are the partners? Who are the partners in this? Are we partnering with people at Fort Bragg? Are we partnering with Cape Fear Valley, as we've talked about before, to look at, you know, different types of, you know, athletics and things like that? You know, you also got the financial piece of this. What is the financing going to be? Who are the partners? Who's the financing? Where is it going to go? And then really, what's the structure? So we really see this, and the community has told us it before. It's been the number one thing that they wanted to see. It's going to tell us from a sports tourism side, you know, what size does this need to be? What's our regional draw? What do we need to have? So you want to build the framework and the blueprints to this before you just, I mean, this is going to be an expensive facility, but it's one that's going to bring tourism here, but it's also going to provide some resources and recreational activities for our citizens here as well. And I think from the feasibility study, we'll see some of that. What are our assets here? What do we have? What do we need? And then again, where it goes. And, you know, I know there's been some discussion around the price. It took us a little while to find the right consultant to help us through this. They've done some other projects. And just want to remember that's kind of an up to, you know, the thing about government, sometimes when you're public facing and we talk about, hey, we budgeted $500,000 towards a feasibility study. Where do you think the bids are going to come? So we'll shape that as we move into this contract. The key thing is we've got a consultant that will start the process, and we're going to, you know, work through the stakeholder engagements, work through the charrettes, work through the economic impacts, whether it's, you know, from a tourism standpoint, look at locations, look at the financial stack on how this thing will be paid for, private sector, you know, public sector, other models. So this is a first step, but these are the kind of things that, you know, we're postured to do, and this is going to take a little while to get in place,
Well,
but it speaks to that, the tourism, sports and entertainment tourism corridor that we're trying to create here.
Well, and you know, it goes back to what I always say about any of these projects, these big projects. Who has the crystal ball?
That's right.
And so the feasibility study, when you provide, you know, $500,000 to say what it's going to be, and you spend for whatever it is, someone had the crystal ball and said we're going to need at least $500,000 in order to get this done. So you did that part of it, and now you'll sit back and see what comes up from the analysis to see where it's supposed to go. I guess the big question that I would have as a journalist is, what's going to be the difference between our facility and the one that's right down the road in Hoke County?
So the one in Hoke County, we really want to posture this for a regional. So think Greensboro Athletic Center, the swim center that's in Greensboro. You're going to have larger competition, collegiate competition, high school competition. You know, depending on, and we'll see what the feasibility study says, but as you look at some of the, you know, Olympic Games and things like that, not that we're going to have the Olympics here, but you're going to have, you know, those kind of national type competitions that maybe they need a training center, and a team needs a training center. Now they come in and they're using it as a training center. So I think there's lots of opportunities. It's going to be larger in scale. I think part of that's what the feasibility study is going to tell us. We've said we want something that's going to be a tourism draw, where you can host competitions at all levels. And so that's a little bit different than a community recreational asset that you see in Hope County. What's in Hope County is beautiful, and they've done a great job. And quite frankly, Cumberland County should have done this years ago. I know when I was on the city council, we were looking at the Parks and Rec bond back in what year was that? 2016, 17. That was one of the topics we were trying to put in the bond, and we pulled it out just because of total cost of everything at that time. And that was more of a recreational asset. This is going to be something on a larger scale. But the feasibility study will say whether it fits here. But when you kind of look across the region and up and down 95 corridor, I think we're postured very well to be that type of facility.
Well, and I think, again, the Greek and I talked about this last hour, that Cumberland County just is physically in a great location in terms of Interstate 95.
That's right.
You've got the regional airport right there near
That's right.
Black and Decker, so that's a great advantage for the drone company that's going to be coming in. And then you can go anywhere here in the country. You can get up to 40
right.
and go east and west, and you can go from Maine down to Florida on 95.
We're going to put you on those recruitment tours with Robo.
Let's go to the map. I say, right? But that's the kind of dialogue that Robo has.
That's exactly right.
When he has it. And
I mean, you couple that. Do we have some weaknesses? Yes. Are we addressing those weaknesses? Yes. And I think we're all rowing in the same direction as a community across all the municipalities to ensure that we're doing that. But the positives here, when you talk about the 95 corridor, you talk about Fort Bragg, you talk about the investments we're making around entertainment, around things like this aquatic center, hopefully in the next few years, we're going to, be talking more about a children's museum. But, you've got the sports complex that the city's putting in place. You've got all these assets like Rhodes Pond that we're seeing, across the community, that are these recreational assets. That's that quality of life that we begin to speak about, our great educational institutions. Those are the types of things that attract people to a community and attract industry to a community. But we've got to have that validation. And that's why I just go back to the point of this announcement yesterday and winning this, bringing this company here, is that it's really validation that we are ready and poised and across the industry, that if you're in the defense sector, you want to be close to the warfighter, you want to be close to Fort Bragg, you want a great workforce, you want a great quality of life, this is where you need to be.
If you're just joining us, Kirk deVIERE, obviously the chairman of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners. Now, it's about time for me to give you the boot.
All right.
But the thing about it is, and Greek, like I said, we're going to have Kirk, and like we have the mayor, expanded time, because there's so much to talk about for our citizens in this community. They get it from the horse's mouth, and so when you tell us, why, the where and why and how come we decided to do it this way, in more than you can get in a 30-second sound bite that you have on TV. This is a good format. Give you a last 30 seconds or a minute here to talk about the 911 center. Something.
No. I was going to make a quick just update. Data center. We're moving forward. The county's moving forward with we're inside the moratorium, 6-month window of our moratorium that we put in place. Staff has been working to put together a plan during that 6 months. The first steps in that are community input sessions. So we're Thursday, August 6th from 6 to 7 p.m. out in Stedman Baptist Church in Stedman. We're going to be hosting a community input session also on August 11th from 6 to 7 at Grays Creek Recreational Center. Really, it's going to give the community an opportunity to come in. I know we've had public hearings, we've had public comment periods around moratoriums and just general discussion, but this is an opportunity. We're going to have discussion stations set up where you can talk about water, power, utilities, land use, noise, air quality, lighting, community, impact, anything with the environment. Get your voice heard, the pros, the cons, what are your concerns, what are your issues, what do you recommend, what do you see, and just let people have that dialogue, and then we're going to pull it all together into kind of what we heard, and that'll get fed into the team that's beginning to look at this ordinance piece. So just want to invite the community out. You can go to our website, cumberlandcountync.gov, and get more information.
All right, Kirk deVIERE, always a pleasure to have you in. Welcome back from vacation. Let's get back. Roll up your sleeves. I guess your sleeves were up last week.
I'm ready to go.
All right, Kirk deVIERE, chairman of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners. Thank you, sir. We'll see you next Tuesday. You're listening to News Talk 640 WFNC. 7:55 is the time, and we've got Fayetteville's most dependable forecast with CBS 17 meteorologist Rachel Dunsing.
Today will be partly cloudy with a high of 93, with thunderstorms arriving by the afternoon and evening, and they could become severe with damaging wind gusts. The storms will end around midnight, then skies will turn partly cloudy with a low of 69, and Wednesday will be mostly sunny with a high of 92. The rest of the week will be warm with highs in low 90s, but mainly rain-free. That is your Fayetteville forecast. I'm CBS 17 meteorologist Rachel Dunzing.
All right, Rachel, thank you so much. 73 right now in Fayetteville, Hope Mills, and also Fort Bragg. You're listening to News Talk 640 for WFNC.
Bass Air Conditioning, the name you trust for heating and air.
If your HVAC or plumbing